Hello, this is Michael from League of Items, and today I have the patch breakdown for 8.6. It comes out tomorrow. There are a decent number of changes, and I'm going to go through them as fast as I can in the beginning, and if I want to do some extra research, I'll put that at the end of the video. So if you're interested in that, stick around for the entire video. First up, Duskblade of Drakthar has been changed. The main thing to know about this is that you lose 35 damage at level 1 and 120 at level 18. For what I'm interested in, I went to level 11, which I think is a pretty reasonable level to get to in a game. And at that point, you should have 2 items, be level 11. You're around the 20-minute mark. So that's you lose 85 damage at that point, and that's really what I focused on when I did a lot of these numbers. So first up, Graves, the attack damage growth stat was changed, so that's 0.59 times 17, and that's how much AD he would get at level 18. So he has 10 more AD. He also gets 8.5 more magic resistance over the course of a game. Smokescreen was buffed slightly, but nothing crazy. It's more of a feel-good thing, which that's always been Smokescreen. So then for Kayn, I did Warrior plus Duskblade and Warrior, Duskblade, and Black Cleaver. Since you lose the 85 damage from the Duskblade nerf, I figured I'd look at how much damage you're really losing. So at level 11 with 2 items, you lose about 45 damage overall. If you can get off 2 or 3 blades reaches, I think, maybe 4 during the time that Duskblade is down, then it'll break even, but a team fight's not going to last that long. You really want the assassination potential. It scales better now since he has higher ratios, but he's going to be a worse champion. Not a worse champion. He's going to be weaker from the 0 to 20 minute period, I think. Or between 0 to 2 items. Kha'Zix actually has received a bunch of buffs. It's ridiculous because in this they say that they want Kha'Zix to have the chance to be something other than a jungler. So why would you balance him outside of the jungle? It just makes no sense to me. Kha'Zix is a jungler. Make him a better jungler. They buffed his Q way too much. They reduced the base damage, but they increased the ratio. So the Q is going to deal less damage before 3 items, but the increase in isolation damage completely compensates for that. So there's no reason to think that Kha'Zix is weaker from this. He also has like a better ratio. I think it's a huge buff. The way that they tried to compensate for this is by nerfing the amount of damage W does to monsters in the jungle. This could be a problem, but worst case scenario is that Kha'Zix has to get a Tiamat and you just delay your 2-item spike a little bit more. But Kha'Zix was doing that forever, so I don't think it's really going to be that big of a problem. Miss Fortune gains 17 AD at level 18. So on her passive, she gets 17 more damage at level 18 on every new target she hits. Her Q damage is increased by 17 at all ranks, and 17 at level 18. And then if you have IE and you crit, you get 42.5 more damage. So this is their way of trying to compensate for Duskblade nerf. And since she's dealing damage so often, this is probably going to be an overall buff for Miss Fortune, because this way she loses a little burst, but while she's dealing damage in a team fight, she's going to do more damage overall. Her ultimate deals 13 more damage per wave at level 18, and this is increased by 5.1 if she crits a wave with Infinity Edge. Nocturne received buff again to his ultimate. The range is longer. He loses 50 damage at level 18, or 50 damage at level 11 because of the Duskblade nerf, and then he loses 38.5 at level 18. So that's pretty bad for Nocturne, but I doubt that his kills were within that much damage. I'd be interested to see those numbers. I'm not sure if Riot even has those numbers, but I wonder how much he's like overkilling targets, because he probably is. Rengar, they keep changing Rengar. I think he's in a good spot. It's more of a playstyle thing. He's a great solo queue champion. He might not ever be a great competitive champion because it's a lot more difficult to assassinate in a team setting. But his Q gained 11.5 damage at 2 items. Gained the same amount of damage on his E. He gained 23 damage on his ultimate. But overall, he's going to lose about 40 damage because of the Duskblade nerf in an all-in. I'm not sure how many Qs he can get off in like his combo, but that kind of determines how much damage he loses. He might compensate for it completely, but I think he probably loses damage at level 11 with 2 items. Shaco, this is a pretty big buff. I don't think Duskblade is really that big of a deal for Shaco because he is gaining between 90 to 130 damage on his first basic attack after a Deceive. So it's not a huge buff if you get off 1 Deceive, but if you get off 2 or 3 Deceives in a team fight, it's probably unlikely. If you get off 2 to 3 Deceives in the amount of time that you would get that Duskblade would be on cooldown, then it's a huge buff. It's a buff by like 200 damage probably. That's a lot of damage. Don't really need to explain that much more. Talon scales better after level 11 because of the way they changed his passive. The ratio on his ultimate was improved by 0.2, so he gains 22 damage on his ult at 2 items. But he liked Duskblade a lot, so this is probably bad for him up until level 11, and then once he starts scaling with his passive, it'll be fine. But Talons really want to snowball, so it's probably going to hurt him a lot. Talon's the kind of champion I could see where the margins of getting kills are a lot lower because he can all in his lane opponent a lot. So I'm sure Riot fine-tunes that. Wukong gains 13.5 AD at level 18. He gains 44 damage on his Q at max rank with 2 items. Zed, his Q damage was reduced on new targets after the first. So that's like if you're in lane and it goes through a minion, it's going to deal less damage to the champion. But if you hit the same target more than once, you don't get the 75% penalty. So it's going to deal, I think, more damage overall. I'd be surprised if it was a large difference one way or the other. Deathmark, at level 11, you get a 5% bonus amplification. At level 16, you get a 10% damage amplification. I don't play a lot of Zed. I'm not sure how big of a deal the Duskblade change is going to be for him, but I would assume not much, because he's another champion that can snowball and just overkill you by a million. So they changed Kai'Sa. They changed her attack range. The attack range when she was released was stupid. I think she was already a decent champion. There were some Kai'Sa players who were still winning games and like could take over an entire game. Now she's probably broken. A lot of the changes that they made have to deal with her AP ratios. And like I said from the beginning, I think that her AP build is better. I'm not sure how Guinsoo's changes that. The Guinsoo's change. But I think she's a good champion right now, and a lot of players don't know how to play against her. So her attack range was increased by 25. That brings her in line with a lot of other AD carries. Now she has a longer range than Lucian. I think she's going to be a top-tier champion. Her passive was buffed. Doesn't impact the AD build, but it helps the AP build a lot. Her Q, the range was increased, which is ridiculous. The Q is already a good part of her kit. The AP ratios were all doubled. Void Seeker is going to deal the same amount of damage. Don't pay any attention to that. Supercharge got buffed a lot, and this is one of the most important parts for her AP build, because the attack speed that you get from the AP build is also really good. And then every single rank had the bonus movement speed increased by 30%, and I'm pretty sure that means that they just gave her 1,200 gold worth of movement speed. Actually, wait, is that wrong? That might be wrong. Don't pay any attention to that. That math might be wrong. But they did buff it by 30%. Bonus movement speed. Actually, no, I think that's it. I think it is 1,200. Killer Instinct, radius around enemy champion, so that's how far away you're going to be. It bounces you out to your attack range. Killer Instinct's shield is now granted on cast, so instead of you flying through the air without a shield, now you have the shield right when you're ulting towards them. Lee Sin had some buffs. You get more energy from your passive. Resonating Strike has a longer range, and his ultimate has more damage, which is a strong buff. Lucian was buffed slightly. I think these buffs are meant to have players look at Lucian and play him a little bit, because I bet Riot thinks he's really strong right now. The press the attack change was huge for him. A lot of players don't like playing around press the attack, but I think it's the optimal way to play. Quinn had a couple different changes. She loses 3 base AD, but after level 6, she'll have more AD. And then the passive and ult changes are huge. I don't really want to get too specific about them, but they're kind of feel good and just really good in general. Taking damage isn't going to cancel your ult anymore. It just takes away the bonus move speed, so that means you can still ultimate. Like, you can still get the damage from the ultimate. That's probably the biggest part of that. The Rakan Xayah combo was nerfed in a couple different ways. Rakan was buffed overall, though. Not sure why. He's already getting pretty popular. And the Xayah nerf was just for the combo. New item, so you know I'm happy. Cost 2,100 gold. The ability power is worth 870. The health is worth 533. CDR 266. Movement speed's 315. The active is worth 7,900 gold. That's a lot of gold. Based on the base stats, it's 94.5% efficient, which is about the range that Riot usually operates within. When you activate this item, if you hit it on 5 of your teammates, or on all 4 of your teammates, the bonus move speed is equal to 7,900 gold. That's just absurd. So it means that it's 470% efficient, and the total gold ceiling is worth 9,870. So for a 2,100 gold item, you will impact your team 9,870 gold for a couple seconds. That's a huge spike. It's difficult to take advantage of that spike because it's so much located in the movement speed, but I think it's not going to impact the game as much as a ridiculously efficient item such as Ardent Sensor did, because Ardent Sensor had this kind of ceiling, but with like attack speed and on hit damage, and that was just so much better. But it's an interesting item. It's an interesting item now. Abyssal Mask. I think this is like a direct buff to someone like Diana, because the attack the radius was reduced. So now you basically need to be a melee mage or an engage mage like Lissandra maybe, or Galio, something like that. They're still going to get the full benefit. The 5% damage amplification is going to be really strong on Diana. And I think some people are already picking her up because she spikes before Seraph's comes online. So like that's a part of the game theory perspective where you have to think like, how can I build a lead before something like Seraph's turns on? So the shield ratio was decreased, but it's still a ridiculous amount of effective health. If you need more information on that, look for one of my other videos where I touch on it, because it's ridiculous. Changing the duration from 3 seconds to 2 seconds just means you have to be a little more reactive, but you should be able to anticipate when your enemy is going to deal most of its damage anyways. Dead Man's Plate. It's when Riot does stuff like this, I just kind of laugh, because it shows sometimes they can get it so right, but sometimes they can get it so wrong. This is not how you fix Dead Man's Plate. At the end of the video, I'll show you the comparison to Sunfires and Randuin's, and it's not good. It's not good. So they changed the damage from physical to magic. Big deal. You no longer lose stacks while you're slowed. That's kind of a solid buff. Deals damage based on stacks, so it's more similar to the new AP item. It doesn't require 100 full stacks. The slow only happens for melee champions at max stacks, which is kind of interesting. Probably a smart move. And then my idea for fixing this item is by giving it 10% CDR for free. And I doubt Riot's going to do that, but I think that's really what it's missing. It needs that little extra something to help out the kind of champion that wants to use it. And it would also synergize well with like Transcendence and stuff like that. That's where they need to go. It's not going to be this is not going to help it enough. Guinsoo's Rage Blade. This is a huge nerf. Guinsoo's Rage Blade was potentially the best item in League of Legends, and I haven't done enough analysis or calculations on the changes, but I'm just going to say huge nerf, because it's not a first or second item anymore unless you're super far ahead. It's really bad. it's much worse than it was. That's what I should say. Maybe it's still good compared to other items. I'll need to run the numbers on that, but I would assume big nerf. Hextech GLP, another instance where Riot gets it completely wrong. Hextech GLP 800, item is still a bit too weak. So the item is too weak, and all you're going to do is change the amount of gold it costs. Like, if the item is too weak, changing the amount of gold doesn't make it stronger. It makes it relatively stronger because you're getting more power. You're getting the same amount of power for less gold. So it helps on gold efficiency, calculations, and stuff like that. But in order for Hextech GLP to be next level, it needs to do something as good as Luden's Echo, as good as Seraph's Embrace. And they're not going to bring it to that level. Seraph's Embrace is always going to be better than Hextech GLP, in my opinion, because of the versatility that it gives you. End rant. Static Shiv, barely nerfed at all. Players are going to overreact to this. I can guarantee you that's going to happen. The ceiling of Static Shiv is like 5 times of what Rapid Fire Cannon is. That's just the way I look at it, because Static Shiv can crit on 5 enemies. Rapid Fire Cannon can crit on 1 enemy. Like, what's the calculation there? You can either get some wave clear or you can attack from a longer range. Woohoo! Rapid Fire is garbage. Anybody who disagrees is wrong. DM me, you won't. Ignite, damage is increased. This is not going to make a gigantic change. Teleport is good because it takes someone from one part of the map to another part of the map. And you can create a numbers disadvantage where you have an entire champion worth of stats, an entire build worth of stats in a new place on the map. Like, Ignite is never going to be able to do that. So I don't know if they're trying to make players use Ignite in the mid lane. Not gonna help. No one's going to take this on top lane unless pro teams finally decide to be aggressive. But I doubt that's going to happen. Just think about how much you lose. You lose so much. Like, you lose the ability to split push with the intention of joining up with your team. Like, you can split push with Ignite and never join your team, but that's not going to be good in professional play. And players want to, and like solo queue players want to be professional, so they copy what the professional players are doing. It just makes no sense. So heal, the cooldown's increased. I think this might make barrier stronger than heal in some ways. If you're looking at it just from the amount of effective health you're getting, barrier is going to become better than heal. The one part of heal that people seem to love is the mini move speed boost, and you can also use it on your teammate. But I think most AD carries are really selfish, and if you are a selfish AD carry, consider barrier. I think it could be worth it. Conqueror. This is an interesting design idea. I don't know why they would do this when they already have press the attack. So at the end of this video, I'm going to compare Conqueror to press the attack. But you get... Oh, wait, no. I'm thinking of something... Okay, yeah. So this is going to need to be compared to press the attack in order to understand how good it is. After 4 seconds in combat, your first attack against an enemy champion gives you 10 to 35 attack damage, which is worth 350 to 1200 gold, based on your level for 3 seconds. So it's not that much time. You need to be able to deal damage with that bonus AD in the 3-second time period, and converts 20% of your damage to true damage. That is ridiculous. Damaging enemy champions refreshes this buff. That's only for melees, but this is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous, selfish keystone, and I'm sure it's going to be really good. I bet people like it more than press the attack. Press the attack is more team focused. Conqueror is more in lane. It's probably better in lane, and it's just more selfish. Like, if you're a Renekton and you go in, you want to deal more damage. You don't care if the rest of your team is also going to deal amplified damage, even though that damage is going to be higher in a team fight. I would need to run simulations on that, which I don't know how to do, but I feel 100% positive that's true. Bone plating, the duration was decreased. I don't think that's a big deal. The champions who already used it, it's fine, and it just helps prevent someone from all-inning you. It functions the same way. Chrysalis, this is the one I thought I was going to talk about it first for Conqueror. Start the game with 60 health. 60 health is worth about 160 gold. When you get 4 takedowns, it turns into 9 AD or 15 AP. so that 160 is going to turn into 315 or 318. Iron Skin and Mirror Shell they were completely removed because they are terrible. Just bad. And then that's it. So now I'm going to get into a couple of the more in-depth comparisons. If you're leaving at this point in the video, sorry, I'm sorry that you have to leave. I know that this is probably very stressful, thinking that numbers are about to be spewed at you, but you know, it's okay. I forgive you. Like and subscribe anyways. For those of you with resilient minds, let's push forward and dig a little deeper. So let's go back up to the items. Okay, so let's look at Dead Man's Plate. Look at Dead Man's Plate first. So Dead Man's Plate compared to Sunfire and Randuin's. This is going to get interesting. Alright, so let's compare Dead Man's Plate to Sunfire and Randuin's. For 2,900 gold, you get 60 armor and either 425 health or 400 health. So there's not a huge difference here. I'm going to change the color of that to red. So then we need to compare what you're getting for your money. So you can either have Dreadnought and Crushing Blow, which gives you up to 60 bonus movement speed. 60 bonus movement speed is equal to 720 gold, so let's just throw that down there. 720 gold. And then there's also the damage component. Immolate. The damage component from Immolate helps you wave clear in lane, and I'm going to say it deals similar damage to Dreadnought without running any numbers on it. So if you're looking at Dead Man's Plate versus Sunfire, the damage kind of cancel out. You're getting more movement speed from Dead Man's Plate. That's fine. The champions who build Dead Man's Plate or will build Dead Man's Plate effectively don't need help wave clear. They need help getting into a fight and dealing a little bit more damage, I guess. That's what Riot's telling us. If you're using a Sunfire champion, if you're using Sunfire on a champion, then you need a little bit of help wave clearing to get to the next stage of the game where you can use your tanky stats and tanky abilities in order to help in a team fight. So you have two completely different archetypes of players, right? One wants to help their team, the other one wants to kill carries. That's always what this choice is going to come down to. So you're not making new item decisions for tank champions or for the fighter champions. Maybe Dead Man's Plate could become an option for fighters if it had some CDR on it. I think 10% CDR is really what Dead Man's Plate needs. I know I said that in the earlier part of the video, but that's really what separates Dead Man's Plate from a viable item. Because during your first 2 item spike, that's when you really want to build a lead as a fighter. So the options for fighters need to be items that are less expensive and help you snowball. And I'm not sure. I think Dead Man's Plate is right in the middle. It might help you snowball a little bit because it gives you a little more damage and it gives you a little more move speed. But the armor and health aren't the kind of item. They aren't the stats you desperately need if you want to snowball. It's like you're fake snowballing, and then you're gonna get to the team fight and try to kill carries. But it's just not gonna work. It's not the way to play, especially in professional. In like organized competitions, I don't think that playstyle of being a fighter with Dead Man's Plate is gonna make any sense. Okay, and then Randuin's, you get minus 20% damage from crits. So you're essentially increasing your effective health because you're going to take a lot less damage from crits. This is a gigantic thing, especially in a meta where most champions, most AD carries build crit. If you go into a game and the enemy AD carry goes crit with an Infinity Edge by a Randuin's and you negate the Infinity Edge, the bonus damage from the Infinity Edge, it's just ridiculous. You need to start building Randuin's Omen if you're a tank. If you're getting blown up by AD carries with crit builds, build Randuin's. You also cripple their attack speed by 15. So let's find out the attack speed value. Attack speed is equal to 25. So equals 25 times 15. You're removing 375 damage from the enemy AD carry, and then you can also slow them. So these are all good things. These both negatively impact carries. This can also be used to peel for your carry. The reduced damage from crits is just gigantic. If you're playing against like a Yasuo and an AD carry that builds crit, this item is ridiculous. So that's just something to keep in mind. I don't think this is enough for Dead Man's Plate. I think it needs CDR. That's my final verdict. Last but certainly not least, we should talk about the Guinsoo's changes. So here are the old stats for Guinsoo's, and here are the new ones. With this change, it goes to 25 AP, 25 AD, 25% attack speed, 10 on-hit damage, 48% of your total attack speed, 24% of your bonus AD, and 24% of your bonus AP for 3,000 gold. Overall, you're going to lose 25 AP, 10 AD, and 5 on-hit damage just in base stats. That's equal to about 1,000 gold, which means the item costs 600 less, but you're getting 1,000 less in base stats, so that's very bad. The one thing they're trying to do with this is to have it scale better. So once you have more than 72 bonus attack damage outside of Guinsoo's and 96 ability power outside of Guinsoo's, or actually, once you... it's close to that. It's either 66 or 90. It's either 66 and 90 or 72 and 96. It's right around there. So I think what they're trying to do is have you pick which one you're going to get the advantage from. Like someone like Varus, he's going to go an attack speed item, Guinsoo's, and then an attack damage item. So maybe like, I don't even know. I'm honestly not sure yet. I haven't looked into it too much. But you're going to benefit from the total attack speed, and you're going to benefit from the bonus AD, but you're not going to benefit from the AP. So that's an interesting way to kind of gate the item, but I think at max, at 6 items, it's probably going to be a little better. I'd have to check that out once I theorize like a full build, but I think for melee champions, it's definitely better because of the new interaction with once you have half stacks, the next one's going to be fully stacked. That's an interesting interaction. I'm not sure who's going to be able to utilize that, but it makes sense. And then, yeah, I mean, for 80 carries, it's going to be tough to justify this as a second item. Maybe it's a third item. Maybe you can go like Zeal item, Infinity Edge, Guinsoo's. I'm not sure if that would work on Varus. Maybe it would work on Tristana. Maybe Tristana comes back with Guinsoo's. That would be pretty cool. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.